In this section, we will explain the notion of information flow. It is a basis for our treatment of confidentiality and integrity. Consider the following program. Based on the sign of the variable x, it assigns a value to the variable y that may incorporate the value of the variable z. A simple example of confidentiality is when we classify data as being either private or public. For the example at hand, assume that x and z are private but that y is public. The assignment that y becomes z is a so-called explicit flow because we directly copy the value of z into y, and it violates our security classification. The guarded command where we assign y the value of 0 in case x is 0 is an example of an implicit flow from x to y because it depends on a test on x, and it violates our security classification. Let us reconsider the program from before, but turn our attention to integrity. A simple example of integrity is when we classify data as being either trusted or dubious. In the example at hand, we classify x and z as dubious but y as trusted. Again, the assignment that y becomes z is an explicit flow, and it violates our security classification. Also, the guarded command where we assign y the value of 0 when x is 0 is an implicit flow, and it violates our security classification. In general, we have a flow relation between variables. For confidentiality, the flow from x to y is allowed if x is public or y is private. For integrity, the flow from x to y is allowed if x is trusted or y is dubious. The approach we take to information flow security is that a program is secure if the actual flows in the program are allowed by the security policy, taking both explicit and implicit flows into account. As an example, let us look at our program once again. The flows that happen are from x to y, and this is an implicit flow, and from z to y, and this is an explicit flow. If the security policy says that x is private and y and z are public, then the permitted flows are that x, y, and z are allowed to flow into x, and y and z are allowed to flow into x, y, and z. We use a double arrow to indicate that all variables on the left flow into all variables on the right. Suppose that Alice wants to keep the contents of the array A of size n confidential from Bob. And similarly that Bob wants to keep the contents of the array B of size m confidential from Alice. And that we have a program that updates the contents of arrays as shown here. Some data may be shared between Alice and Bob. Some may be private to Alice. Some may be private to Bob. And some may be public to everybody. We use the security levels shared, Alice, Bob, and public for this. To express the intended relationship between these security levels in the online tool, you should specify that Alice may decide to share her information and may learn public information. And similarly, that Bob may decide to share his information and may learn public information. It is now time for you to use the online system to assign security levels to variables and array entries, and to check whether the security analysis accepts the program. Having done this, you should read the text in the book, doing the try-it outs on the way.